Thank you again. So nice to sit. To come in and just to sit down and be quiet and for a good long period of time. And then, of course, the irony is to speak afterwards. When often after sitting still for 30 minutes, I find myself with very little to say. I think it's true for when we really sit down and be quiet and listen to the world around us, then there's not so much to say. But I'll try. I brought along a koan from the Zen tradition, which is typically a useful talking point, some aspect of Dharma practice, a specific aspect that can be brought up. Because in our practice of sitting, Dharma practice and meditation, questions often arise for us. And often we have questions already, questions around life and meaning, which the practice of still sitting will help to really bring to the forefront. And so it's going to bring up a case from the what's called the gateless barrier, or the gateless gate in the Zen tradition. This book was given to me by a good friend of mine, Dave Scott, who's another of one of Tenshin Roshi's Dharma successors. He gave me this book in the year 2000. Feels like a long time ago now. For the best wishes for the year 2000 and beyond. Good luck with your practice, whatever form it takes. I was back in 2000 now, so 25 years, but I think those words still really fit. Good luck with your practice, whatever form it takes. Good luck with your practice, whatever form that takes. The practice of our lives. That's what Dharma practice is. It's a practice of this life. So this is from case 37 of the gateless barrier. Famous case of Joshu. A monk asked Joshu, what is the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West? Okay. And Joshu said, the cypress tree in the courtyard. What is the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West? This is something of, for those who have not been initiated into the Zen tradition, then the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West is something of a stock phrase, kind of an essential question. It was used as kind of like an opening gambit, as a way to start a conversation around meaning, to start the conversation around Zen. Bodhidharma was the semi-legendary, they think he was a true historical figure, who is credited with bringing the tradition of Buddhism from India into China. Though in actuality, it's more likely one of many over a century or two, coming along the Silk Road or taking the boat ride, bringing Buddhism ever further and further afield. In our lifetimes, the practice of Dharma practice and Buddhism has spread more and more, and all the way out to the west coast of the United States. Right? We look back and see these teachers who journeyed from, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, in all kinds of different traditions from many different countries, bringing these ancient teachings to new shores. So it said that Bodhidharma at a great age, it had been his teacher's wish that he wanted him to spread the Dharma to distant lands, and so he left India and went to China. And so this question, what is the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West, became synonymous with what is the meaning of Buddhism, what is the meaning of Dharma, or one could even say, what is the meaning of life, or what are we doing here? What's this all about? really striking to the heart of that question. For myself, when I began Dharma practice, it was back in Wales, where I grew up in North Wales, and I became interested through the gate of reading about science, really, like physics, cosmology, and I had an armchair interest in quantum mechanics, and so I did a lot of reading in that area, and that really brought these essential questions to the forefront. Like, what is the meaning? Why are we here? What is my purpose? And eventually, for myself, that would bring me to begin Zen retreats, to attend meditation retreats in that time in close to me, near Liverpool in England. I remember when I first went and I started practice, I invested in a mat and a cushion. Right? So in Zen they say like a zabuton and a zafu, the meditation cushion and the mat. And they were quite expensive. They weren't a very common item in the UK. You know, I had to kind of save up for one of those and send away. And I got my meditation cushion, my own cushion and mat, and set up my meditation space. And then when I did the retreat, I took my, it said you could bring your own cushion and mat, but we have some if you don't, you know. Like we do that now for when we do retreats. We encourage to bring your own, but usually the venue will have some as well. And I took mine along to the meditation retreat, and I set it up at a place in the hall, found a place, set up my spot. And then the first evening when I came in to sit, my mat had gone. and there was this like little thin, scrawny mat in the place of where mine was, and I'm like, oh my God, somebody stole my mat. You know, what kind of Buddhists are these guys? Like it's like the mat had gone, and we were already sort of entered silence, and I thought, oh, I can't, you know, say anything now. And I did the whole retreat on this other mat. And at the end, and it was in my mind, you know, the whole story that came up around what happened, somebody took it, what's going on. And at the end of the retreat, I was helping with the breakdown, take everything down. So I'm going to find my mat. Right? I had my cushion, but I'm going to find my mat. And I went through, and I looked, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And then the last seats to break down was the teacher's seat. And it was my teacher, Tenshin Roshi. It was him and his wife at the time, Seisen Roshi, and they were co-leading the retreat. And my mat was, somebody had double stacked her place, put two mats, and mine was on the bottom. So it was like the support cushion for her, you know. So that was the last place I looked, and like the irony, like my mat is under the teacher's seat, you know. And then it just reflected in that, and seeing that nobody knew it was my mat, you know, and people wanted the teacher to have. She's quite elderly at that point too, and we wanted her to be comfortable. So that was the great meaning revealed. So, but this question of what is the meaning of Bodhidharma's coming for the West, or what is the meaning of the Dharma? I like to look up the meaning of words, you know, the etymology of words, and something I've discovered with Zen practice is often if you put a word in and search for meaning in a dictionary, the meaning that fits best is often the second or the third derivative. You know, it's not like often not the literal meaning of something, but it'd be much more subjective. It'll often be the second or third definition will be much closer. But this morning I had a challenge because I thought, what is the meaning of the word meaning? And I thought I'm gonna look that up, and you know, as many are doing now, it's like kind of succumbing to the influence of AI for search now, right? So rather than putting in Google, I use Perplexity or another kind of AI app, and I threw it in there and asked, what is the meaning of the word meaning? And it almost broke the internet, which, and I think if somebody, which I think somebody would deserve a Nobel Prize for if they do break the internet, probably be a good thing. But what is the meaning of the word meaning? And the answer came in the first, and it says, that's a wonderfully meta question. That's like a great question. And that made me smile because I thought even the AI needed a minute to think about that. I thought, what a great question. Oh my gosh, run some numbers, like whatever. The meaning of meaning is a concept that philosophers and linguists have wrestled with for ages. And here is a breakdown of the different facets of meaning. And it gets into core concepts, different perspectives, complexity of meaning. And I'll spare you this because this was I just printed the first page, but it went on and on. It's like the meaning of the word meaning, hard to say. In our Zen tradition, it said that Master Rinzai, who's founded the Rinzai School of Zen, so a very pivotal teacher, in answer, he was asked this question, what is the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West? And he said, if he had any meaning at all, then it would have been a wasted trip. If he had any meaning, if there was any meaning in it at all, it would have been a wasted trip. So in Zen we say, what is the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West? Well, Bodhidharma defined Zen or Dharma as an intimate teaching, not depending on words and letters, pointing directly at mind and realizing Buddha. Right, so it's a teaching of intimacy, an intimate teaching, a very close teaching, right, immediate teaching, pointing, not dependent on words and letters. So not ignoring words and letters, not in opposition to words and letters, but not depending on. Right? The meaning is not depend on the words, but the words help to point directly at mind in order to realize Buddha. Now this word Buddha means awakening, right? Awakened one. That's what the word Buddha means, to be an awakened one. And in Zen, in Chan China, the real revolution of Zen was to say that everyone is able to realize the awakened mind. That it doesn't depend upon an education, and it doesn't depend upon being sharp or dull, being exceptional in certain regards. It's just everyone as they are can realize this awakened mind, this Buddha mind. Not dependent on words and letters, but we can use words and other communication to help point at mind. That's our practice. That's our practice of meditation. We point ourselves at the reality of mind. We sit, and we may at the beginning be quite involved in the thought stream, wondering about this and that, and what we're doing later this afternoon. It's like what's going to go on later this week. Well, whatever might be going through, all of the different things that we get caught up with. But then when we sit, the essential shift is to cease to drive and engage that thought process. Right? So we're not planning for what's coming later, and we're also letting go of worries and concerns about what may come later or what may have come before. But rather we involve ourselves in a direct experience, the intimate teaching of mind. And mind in this sense is not just the sense of me, I that is experienced in the world, but we're opening and allowing the world to come to us and reveal us. This brings us more to the gist of the intent here of the koan. When a monk asked Joshu this question, what is the Dharma? What is the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West? He said, the cypress tree in the courtyard. And it said that at Joshu's temple, his place of practice at that time, there was a large cypress tree in the center of the courtyard. So it's likely that this was taking place where this was it was at hand. It was very obvious. You can imagine Joshu is sitting here when a monk or somebody with inquiring into the nature of practice comes in and asks him about the great meaning of Zen. Perhaps they've traveled a long way to come to see this famous Zen teacher of the day. Cypress trees, I've always loved cypress trees. There's some beautiful, particularly it stands out in my mind is some of the cypress trees I've seen on the coast in California. I remember when I first came to California years ago, and I took a trip, was fortunate to take a trip, but went up to Big Sur, I always wanted to go up PCH, because it's so classic, like to go up the California coast. I remember going up to kind of Carmel, Monterey, Pebble Beach kind of area there. We just sort of drive through, and there'd be these extraordinary cypress trees. There's an area there where they're just right on the edge of the cliff, basically at the ocean. There's some as well, some beautiful ones in Santa Monica and the same kind of things, right on the front. And they all have such extraordinary shapes. They've been sculpted and shaped by the wind and the conditions over the years. And they're extraordinary. And then living at Yokoji, of course, there's a lot of trees. Not as many trees as there were, which is kind of sad to bear witness to that decline over the years, the loss of a lot of forest with the fires and the drought. It seems like, every year new trees fall, right? Or have to be cut down because, they're damaged or they're dangerous. A lot easier to take them down than put them up, sadly, right? And you see it when you see a tree. Every tree is different. Every tree in the world, there are not two trees the same, which is extraordinary. Same thing for people, right? For each of us here, each of us on joining by Zoom. We're all have a common root and share something very much in common. There's a commonality. There's a connection. We recognize one another as the same in one sense, in a deep sense. And yet that sameness is expressed a little differently in everybody. Everybody's a little different. Everyone has that unique look, unique story. Right? But all branches are all leaves on the same branch. All branches on the same tree. So here we have this monk who wants to know about Zen or know about the Dharma. Has a question. Asking this question of Joshu. He just points. But it doesn't say that he even points. Maybe he doesn't point, but the tree is kind of just over here, and he says, the meaning of Zen, the meaning of the world, the meaning of this life. And he directs him to the cypress tree in the courtyard. In another part of this koan, it expands upon this conversation. What is this cypress tree in the courtyard? There's certainly been times in my kind of practice life, particularly early on at Yokoji, where I would sit in the meditation hall for long periods of time, and then you'd leave the hall. It'd be like whatever the next activity is on retreat. And you come outside and you'd be confronted by one of these huge pine trees. A pine tree which maybe I'd walked past, 50 or 100 times before. But suddenly, with the centeredness and the intimacy that comes from sitting, you really see a tree differently. You really see the profundity, how profound it is that something grows in this way. We can so easily take the beauty of the world and of each other for granted. We can take it for granted, or it can seem mundane. But some of the great power of sitting meditation is to return us to a place where we see things anew. We see things as they are. And things as they are always wondrous in their essence. That's so easily obscured by our human mind. There is always positioning itself in the world, always with many things to do and all kinds of issues to resolve. Right? And somehow we slip away and we lose that intrinsic sense of peace and rootedness and contentedness that comes from just being so, just being thus. I wonder if the monk was disappointed when he was given that response, right? Coming all that way and asking what is the great meaning? And Joshu says, the cypress tree in the courtyard. You know, I remember to my to my detriment, like many years ago when my son was young, we were driving in the car. I was kind of somewhere around Seattle area. He must have been 4 or 5 years old, 3 or 4, something like in that area, and he's in the back in his booster. I remember he was in his booster seat, so whatever age that is. And he asked me that question. He actually asked, "What's the meaning of life?" Which, you know, sometimes kids can ask those kind of questions, which is sort of like every Zen teacher's, you know, you're kind of waiting for your kid to ask you that, you know, so you can expound on something. But and so he asked me, what is the meaning for life? I remember I looked up in the rearview mirror and I saw, and I just said, there's no meaning. How horrifying, right? Like he's very like going to spend his 30s lying on a couch telling a therapist about that one, you know, just. I'm like, there's no meaning, like just such a zen response, and even, you know, I might be projecting through memory, but I can remember the kind of puzzled look, so kind of being struck on his face by that. There's no meaning. But then following it up, or trying to save the day, then, you know, oh dear, is you know, we find meaning. Or maybe a better answer would have been, you give me meaning. Right? In hindsight, I would have coloured that one in. Give me another few years and I'll claim that that's what I said. But that question of meaning is always like, it's really driven my practice over the years. I came out to Yokoji to study, to find meaning. And for many years, I really felt that Zen was it. I found the meaning. I found the way. Out of all of these different ways, it's this way. Right? And that held up for me for a long period of time. I felt like, no, this is the way to understand, is this way. That's changed over the years. You know, and of course, and looking at it now, it's like I can't help but smile at the vanity of that kind of understanding, or the naivety of that understanding. That any way that people create to understand the world is necessarily flawed. The people, we're all, are we not? We're all flawed. You know, as human beings, but also there's a flaw, but there's also the perfection. Like in any tree that you see. You know, I sometimes like to just see the trees that grow outside our place where we live there. And because of the fires and the drought, many trees, they show a lot of flaws. You know, they'll be wonderfully green and growing in one area, and then they'll have a dead branch or a part that's turned brown on another side. If you look close enough, you can always see the flaw. I had a good friend years ago who was really brilliant at being able to spot the flaw in everything. But it made them really challenging company, you know, in the sense of, I would go to art museums, I would go to an art museum, and I'd be just impressed by everything, you know. It's just, I'd see something, I'd just be, look at that, that's amazing. And they'd say, oh, so-and-so, so-and-so, and you're like, oh yeah, you know, it's like, I'd rather be like in that kind of, you know, shocked or blissful ignorance where you just see the beauty and you don't see the flaw. But there's flaws. There's flaws in any system. There's flaws too in the system of Buddhism or of Zen or of Dharma. Yeah. And yeah, it's a flaw in the way things may be organized or built. As soon as we create a method and an organization and a scheme, there's always difficulties. There's always difficulties. But it's always pointing at something which is not flawed. Right? If you point at the cypress tree in the garden, it's like, is it flawed? One could say, well, you know, maybe it needs pruning, or maybe we take this branch, or maybe this should be done, or maybe we put something around it. But just as it is, just as everybody is, just as the whole world is, essentially and intrinsically, it's not flawed. There is an innate perfection. That is always so. That is always thus. That's what we gravitate, that's what we come back to in our sitting practice. The innate perfection of this. This world as is. It's hard for us to swallow, or hard for us to see, because we're always drawn towards what's wrong with it. What's wrong with this one? What's wrong with that one? What's wrong with the world? And of course, there are problems aplenty. In fact, they seem to have gone exponential, ever more exponential. Right? But in order to navigate this world, in order to navigate this life, how much better equipped we can be if we don't forget, if we're in touch with what is not flawed, what is always innately perfect as is. It's much more of its meaning. What is the meaning of Buddhism? What is the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West? An intimate teaching, pointing at the mind, revealing Buddha, revealing this intrinsic perfection, this base stillness, which is always so, it's always available, but often hidden, often obscured by our difficult dealings with life and the world. But investing time in the straightforward practice of still sitting. That's when I, bought my overpriced cushion and mat in the UK. I began the first time that I sat. And then fast forward 30 years, and it's just the same practice. Sitting down, being quiet, striking a bell, and then spending some time just as we are, and not finding fault with this one or that one or with the world, but letting things return to their basic wholeness, their basic peaceful expression. That's a practice worth investing in. To do so gives us, provides a place of refuge, a place of what Master Dogen called repose, a place of repose that we can return to. Just like the tree in the courtyard that quietly sits for all of those years or even centuries, rooted in the ground, offering shade, being just as is. Practice is very straightforward, Dharma practice. We make it complicated. but in its core, in its essence, very direct, very straightforward. Be still. Let go of our conceptions around the world and ourselves and others, and return to what is most fundamental, over and over. Until that mind ground, that sense of presence and as-isness is imprint, remains as a background, is available as a background of our life. So as we're going around the world with all of the 10,000 things to do, all of the concerns, the worries, and the things to take care of, we're supported by the realization of this grounded, still spaciousness, which is never lacking, that we can surrender to, that we can feel our roots in. You know, on this sort of journey for meaning, and then going through Zen study and formal study and that whole journey, for myself it really changed in that I would spend a long time sort of drilling down ever more finely, ever deeper, looking for meaning. looking for meaning, until arriving at a place of where no meaning is for real, right? But isn't necessarily the most joyful news, to arrive at a place of absolute no meaning. That's quite sobering, right? It's just like, oh my gosh, there's no meaning. Woohoo! No, there's no. Right? And at that time, what really helped me in my life and in my practice was to make meaning in the immediacy of my environment, in the home, with family, with the things around me. You look around, you open your eyes, and there's plenty of things to take care of. There's plenty of meaning to be found just in that everyday activity. But even now, that, you know, for sure, that question's not exhausted for me. It's not meaning. It's not bringing the meaning. It's not finding the meaning. It's an open question that keeps expanding and deepening. What a curious life it is. What a great mystery we're all involved in. Yeah. And having the opportunity where to, the rare and radical art of a group of people coming together and deciding to just sit down and shut the heck up for half an hour. Just that is enough. That's more than enough. Like-minded, peacefully intentioned people who want to make the best of this experience in the world. For the benefit, for the good of all. That's the heart of sangha. That's the heart of the practice. You know, if you distill Buddhism down, Zen down, for all of the meaning or no meaning, wisdom, however you drill down, you come to the core tenet of Buddhism, which is, it is a way to reduce suffering. A means in order to illuminate what the causes of suffering are, and then from that place of illumination to be able to respond in a way which lets unnecessary suffering go and positively impacts our life and the life of those around us. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's something well worth our involvement. And thank you for giving ICD meaning and continuing it all these years. With, you know, I look around and see faces that have been involved with the organization just since the beginning for many years. And then it always has some new faces and new friends to meet. You know, that keeps it fresh and it keeps developing. So at this point, though, I'd like to pause and to open it up for any for any questions, any comment, anything that you'd like to share, either here in the room or on Zoom, in our Zoom room. Anything you'd like to raise up at all with the time that we have. Okay, well, we're a little past noon. I'd just thank you everybody on Zoom for attending today. I was neglectful to put in any links in the chat about announcements or opportunities for Dharma, but you know where to find those resources. Thanks for attending today on Zoom. I'd like to, if you got to run, you got to run. But I'd like to close with the metta chant that of Ian's chant. I brought along some extra copies, but probably not enough for everybody here. But if we could we hand these out? Maybe we could share one, and I'll take half, and we'll go this way. And then maybe we could close with Ian's going forth. Oh, we got more. See, this is a wonderful opportunity for our volunteers to spring into action. Thank you. And let me see. I'm gonna put it in the chat for those on Zoom. So let me get that. Okay. Okay, so I put it in the chat too. And perhaps we can read this together. I'll begin. We can read together, please. Going forth into this world so needing light, may I bring all the kindness and wisdom I embody to each being and each situation that I meet. May the power of my practice today strengthen my resolve to be an agent of peace and justice in this world. Going forth together into this world so needing light, may we together bring all the kindness and wisdom we embody to each being and each situation that we meet. May the power of our practice today strengthen our resolve to be agents of peace and justice in this world. We dedicate our practice for the liberation of all beings, the great, the small, the wise, the ignorant, the powerful and the powerless. May all beings be liberated from sorrow and loss, hatred and injustice, scarcity and want, and every form of suffering. May our practice today be a prayer for peace, and may it benefit all beings without exception. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks everyone on Zoom.